Namaste and welcome back to today's episode of Mahabharata Matters. In the previous episode, we had seen that after seeing Duryodhana's condition, Aśvatthāmā was extremely furious. He was already angry with them that they had deceitfully killed his father. Now, to see his dear friend squirming in pain and to know that he was beaten unfairly made him even more furious. He hated them dearly now. He had asked Duryodhana to anoint him as the commander-in-chief of the remaining 3 warriors from the Kaurava side. It was him, Kripacharya and Kritavarma. He had sketched the most gruesome plan of all the yugas. After seeing an owl destroying a lot of crows at night, he had decided to slay all the Pandavas similarly. He was going to kill them all in the thick of the night while they were sleeping. He was burning with fury. According to him, Pandavas were the wrongdoers. They had wronged him and he was going to avenge it. He was blessed with a sword by Lord Shankara himself. He picked up that sword and headed towards the Pandava camp to kill them all in the dead of the night. Kripa and Kritavarma stood outside the camp and they promised Aśvatthāmā that they would not let anyone escape or run away from there. Aśvatthāmā first went into the tent of Dhrishtadyumna. He hated him from the bottom of his heart. He had killed his father. He kicked him from his sleep and wound the string of a bow around his neck like a noose. Dhrishtadyumna was half asleep and did not even have time to recoup or retaliate. He kept saying, "Do not do this, Aśvatthāmā. Fight with me like a fighter. Kill me with arrows." But Aśvatthāmā had made up his mind. He was going to kill them all just like this. He tightened the noose around Dhrishtadyumna's neck until he breathed his last. He had killed his father's killer and Draupadi's brother, Dhrishtadyumna. He then killed the rest of the Panchalas. The 5 sons of Draupadi woke up hearing all the commotion. But before they could gain composure, Aśvatthāmā had killed them all too. All the 5 sons of Draupadi were dead. After that, Shikhandi, the other brother of Draupadi too, was killed. Yudhamanyu, Uttamaujas and all the remaining soldiers of the Pandava army were slain as well. Some soldiers were trying to escape. The once great Kripacharya had set all the camps on fire, making sure that nobody stood a chance of escaping. He had become a barbaric beast along with Aśvatthāmā and Kritavarma. They had not only massacred everyone in their sleep, they were celebrating their death like Rakshasas. Then they went hurriedly to Duryodhana, who was still squirming in pain and waiting for his death. He was succumbing to his injuries slowly. Aśvatthāmā reported to him that together all 3 of them had slain the entire Pandava brethren except the Pandavas themselves, Krishna and Satyaki. They were not in the tents and hence had escaped death, he said. Duryodhana was ecstatic. He said, "Aśvatthāmā, I am very proud of you. Today you have done something that the great Bhishma, Drona or even my friend Radheya could not accomplish. I will die a happy man." Saying so, he breathed his last. The greatest adharmi of the Kaurava clan, Duryodhana, had died. The next moment, Sanjaya lost the divine vision that was granted to him by sage Vedavyasa. He couldn't see the happenings at the battlefield and report to Dhritarashtra anymore. The purpose of divine vision had been served. Now it was taken away. Dhrishtadyumna's charioteer had stepped out of the tents at that time. Upon returning, he saw everything from a distance. Now he was the lone survivor from the camps of the Pandavas. The sun was beginning to paint the eastern horizon red. He ran to the other end of the battlefield where the Kaurava camp was set up. The Pandavas, Krishna and Satyaki were sleeping there. He reported to them the sudden and shocking turn of events of that night. The Pandavas were numb with shock. They had just celebrated their victory the previous night by blowing conches. This morning they were receiving this ghastly news. They couldn't believe that an act so inhuman could have been executed by their Guruputra Aśvatthāmā. They all ran to the Pandava camp. They stood there in shock and disbelief. So what are our takeaways from this story? One pushes the envelope of misdemeanor little by little. At that time, it may not seem much of a deviation or digression from what he already has done previously. But gradually, without even realizing, he would have reached to the fine line between human and inhuman. At that time, crossing over that line does not seem like a big deal. These attitudes do not develop overnight. They inch towards the brink of shamelessness very gradually. If we do not catch ourselves and introspect our behavior and thoughts, it becomes impossible to correct them. Before we know, we would have gone into the realm of no return. This verse says exactly that. Pratyaham pratyaveksheta narascharitamatmanaha kim nu me pashubhistulyam kim nu satpurushairiti. What this means is, every single day, a person has to introspect himself. Was my behavior like an animal's or like that of the noble people? Only then we can catch our shortcomings. Another important point to note here is that we may think, why did this have to happen? Why did all the good people have to die in this gruesome manner? It is very difficult to reconcile with this event. If we understand it in terms of the symbolism of Mahabharata, it may be easier to understand. Duryodhana and his brothers stood for the evil tendencies of our mind. But our mind has good tendencies also. The Pandava allies stood for those good tendencies. But as per Shastra, for us to attain moksha or the ultimate realization of knowledge, we have to drop all kinds of vasanas, the good as well as the bad. We cannot progress by clinging on to even Shubha vasanas, the good tendencies. That is the reason the attachment to them too was broken with their death. It is said that the Shubha vasanas in the spiritual ego are the subtlest and hence the most difficult to remove. To kill the Pandava survivors, Aśvatthāmā had used the sword that he had received from Lord Shankara himself. It depicts that to get rid of the Shubha vasanas, we can do so only with the grace of the Lord. With these thoughts, we come to the end of today's episode. Remember, in this series we are discussing matters of Mahabharata because even today, Mahabharata matters. Hari Om!